Well, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to Project Time Garage. This is going to be like installment 4, I guess, on the Project Junk Runner here, which is our 1994 Nissan, not a Nissan. It's a 1994 Toyota 4Runner with the good old 6-cylinder, the 3VZE engine that had some major issues. When we left off the last time with this little truck, we had it started and it ran smooth. Remember, I had a couple of plug wires flipped, so I took care of those. This time I have the exhaust hook back up, so it should be quiet now, or quieter now. So let's jump in there, let's fire it up, and let's listen to it. So it's running pretty smooth now. Do we have anything else? Ooh, we have reverse. Ooh, we have drive. Looks like we have oil pressure. Well, we have voltage because of the battery charger, and there's a little bit of fuel in here. But overall, it's actually pretty quiet, doing everything it's supposed to do. Let's cut it off before it gets hot. We'll turn it off before it gets hot. The most I like to run one at a time without coolant, about 30 seconds, and I'm not comfortable after that. Just to give you some quick backstory on what we're doing here, I put head gaskets on it, and I had extensive head work done. I had both heads redone. I had 2 valves that weren't even, actually I think I had 4 valves total that weren't even closing at all. So it was a massive loss compression. I believe that was cylinders 3 and 5, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, got all that done, got it back together. We've heard it run, but I put it right back together with all the same parts that that came off of it. In other words, I didn't spring for a whole bunch of new stuff. Now, I did do a timing kit while I was at it because, you know, timing belt, water pump, while you're there, you do those things. But as far as like hoses and belts and alternator and starter and all those other things that would probably eventually need to be addressed on this thing, I didn't do any of that. And the reason I didn't do any of that is because at this point, the only thing I know is it runs, right? But we don't know, we don't know what we've got. So the goal is, in this video, is to get this thing buttoned up well enough to be able to start it, get it out of this garage. That's gonna be a feat in and of itself because it was parked right there before this lift was put in. It's been there a while. So that means that I'm gonna have to probably get the casters down. Those casters fit that lift. So, get the cars off of it, put the caster wheels on it, get it up in the air and roll it out of the way enough to get the 4Runner out of its spot when that time comes. But anyway, that'll be a few minutes into this video. For now, let me catch up on where I'm at and what I've done, just so, you'll know. We have basically everything put back together and where it goes for the most part. I have replaced the fan, got a new one of those, because the old fan, well, it got into something, don't know what. Also have a radiator back in it. Of course, old hoses are still there, and this one has a really soft spot on the back side, so obviously these hoses are not staying long term, but they will suffice to get it out, get it up, get it to operating temperature, and make sure that, something serious doesn't go wrong. I did replace this hose back here and this heater hose. Actually, these 2 sections of heater hose I've replaced because taking them apart, they were just destroyed. So I had to do that. But almost every hose on the machine is kind of oil saturated and or just old and crunchy. So it needs a full set of hoses. And man, there are a bunch of hoses on this thing. I can't believe how many pieces of rubber coolant hose there are on this thing. It'll probably cost $30,000 just to buy a hose to do this. Hope not. So at this point, where I am is I need to get all of the intake air intake assembly back on the thing, and I think I want to try and find a air conditioning belt here at some point, because I would like to see if the air conditioner works or not. The power steering pump is just kind of hanging over there. You see it. Well, you see it up against the battery here. I'm actually not going to hook that back up for a little while now. And the reason why is because there's a massive power steering leak on this thing. When I brought it home, it was just dumping, gushing fluid. There's so much oil or there's so much power steering fluid over there in this area, you can't even tell where it's coming from. So I think what I'm going to do is I may try to get it out of the garage first and get it outside where I can get the pressure washer and some solvent and really wash it and really, you know, clean that area up well before it goes back together, because it's just crusty. And every time you touch it, you just get icky. And we don't like to be icky. Also, while I was here, I went ahead and got a brand spanking new battery for it, because the battery that's in it was straight junk. And this air intake hose here, you can see that someone has done some things to it. So a new one of those is on its way. And there's a new temperature sender inbound that'll be here for it, because that one's kind of loose back there on the top. But I think at this point we're probably good enough to stick these things back on it, and let's start it up and let it run for a little while and see what kind of leaks we have and just in general what's going to happen. Before I do that, I have a lot of junk here in the floor. My work area has just gotten gross. So let's clean this work area up before we try to move it out. That's a little bit better. At least it's not a hazard to walk around on the floor anymore. Let's go ahead and get this put back together temporarily so we can start it and the mass airflow sensor actually works. The problem I think here is going to be getting all these clamps back where they go. Maybe, I don't know, maybe not be so bad. It's extremely hard to get both of those on at the same time. All right. I need to start working on mini trucks, because I'm too short for everything else. All right. Okay, raw. That's going to be terrible. I don't like that at all. That's just temporary. Just temporary. All right, that should be good enough to start it. I just want to start it and let it run for a while and let it start coming up to temperature. And let's see what else we have in the way of leaks. Right now we're just running straight water in the radiator, because I don't want to put a whole bunch of antifreeze in it and spend $10,000 on that just to later flush it out anyway. All right, so we're going to go ahead and time this thing. And in order to do that, you just need a back probe kit or something in order to make a connection between two plugs on this. I'm using the little back probe kit I got from Amazon. It's a pretty cheap kit. In fact, I'll put a link down there to it if you want to find one. It comes with a whole bunch of little pins and connectors and stuff, so you can do a whole lot of jumper and junk. Anyway, we're going to put basically a jumper between this bottom right one and this center one. So we do it like that and like that. That should be it. Now we'll hook up our timing light, and this particular light, like most dial back lights, this right here goes on the number 1 plug wire. This one. And we go to battery positive and battery negative. And we have a timing light, all right? Now I've made a mark down here on this pulley on the back side of this belt, this pulley way down there, and that mark is the timing mark. I painted it silver so it shows up well. So the idea here is going to be to start the vehicle. We're going to take the timing light and we're going to shine it down there, and that timing mark should stop somewhere on one of those dots down there. Let me get some light too. There, that's probably a little better right there. Now we can start to see our timing marks and stuff down there. So start this thing up and we'll get a base timing on it. We're going to set it to 10 degrees. It's actually just a little bit short of 10 degrees. And I mean just a little bit short. I don't know if you can see that mark down there or not, but anyway, we're just short of 10 degrees. We're really close actually. Actually, I think we're close enough. I may leave it and run that like that. That is really close. The timing light tells us that our idle speed is 825. So at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to unhook my wire over here, and we'll see what our timing is after that. Way worse, it sounds like. I still think we may have a vacuum leak somewhere. I think probably the way to take care of that, or to figure that out, we'll spray some brake cleaner around it, around the engine up here, around the intake, and see what that does, because we got one somewhere, I think. All right, let's start it back up, and we'll start just kind of gently spraying brake cleaner around different areas. If the truck idles up, we have found a vacuum leak. Oh, found a vacuum leak. Maybe. No, I guess not. Well, the engine's going to be clean when I'm done anyway. Well, I don't know if we fixed it or not, but it's idling pretty good, and the engine's quiet enough I can actually hear the injectors themselves firing. I'm going to go ahead and turn it off before it gets any warmer and make sure that I'm completely topped up on coolant. If I am, we're going to start and let it run. I'll make sure it's topped off here. Last thing I want to do is end up with a vehicle that didn't have enough water in it. There it is. All right, I'm going to start it back up again and just let it run a little bit. See what happens. Sometimes it runs good, sometimes it doesn't. if it'll build up any pressure. Our alternator's charging and our coolant temp is up about normal, and we have oil pressure. That's another thing I've got to do here pretty soon, is I need to get it I need to get that oil changed. I'm not sure what the status of that oil even is, but it's gonna need to be changed. So let it sit here and run for a little while, let it build up some pressure and see what kind of leaks it decides to spring on me. Well, I ended up having to shut it down prematurely there. It ran for about, I don't know, 10 minutes or so, and everything was doing good, but the temperature kept creeping up and creeping up and creeping up, and I don't really know why it was doing that. So either my thermostat is stuck. Remember, we didn't change the thermostat because, again, we didn't know what we had, or something else is going on. But it did get to the point where it looked like it was going to start to overheat. It was 3/4 the way up or so on the gauge, so that's more than uncomfortable for me. So I went ahead and shut it down before, you know, got too hot. I guess once it cools down, probably what I'm going to do is, I think I may just pull the thermostat out of it temporarily and run it for a little bit and see if it tries to overheat quickly like that again. But if it's flowing water at all, it shouldn't have overheated that quick. So I think that may be part of what's going on. So that's what we're going to do next. If this fly will leave me alone, that's what we're going to do next. Newsflash. I think I know what led up to the whole head problem and the whole valve issue. This is the thermostat that was in the engine when I got it. That's a pretty big thermostat, right? And I noticed that when I took the thermostat out, it was actually pressing up against the water neck. So if you put the whole thing together, it had about that much space before it would fully seat, and you could push it on in there and get it, you know, get it seated. But I didn't really think about it when I put it back together. So it's been overheating a little bit, or been trying to overheat. I'll start it within 10 minutes. The temperature's creeping up way further than I'm comfortable with, and I'll just shut it off. And every time that happens, the top radiator hose is hot, and the bottom hose is ice cold, and so is the bottom of the radiator. So it's not flowing, right? So I thought, well, I actually heated up the thermostat and it opened. Well, when it opens, this entire thing has to come back, right? You know, as it pushes itself open, the overall length actually increases on this. But this thermostat was jammed in there up against the back wall, so there's no way it could ever open, because it's just pushing against the back side of the block at that point. So on a whim, I went and grabbed another thermostat. look at the difference in those things. So this one will fully open, and this one will not. This appears to be I don't know, I think it's an AutoZone part. But anyway, it's the wrong one for this machine. So what happened? I believe that this 4Runner started overheating. And what I believe caused the overheating was the fan clutch. You see how it's got all the oil that's came out of it here? It feels good like this, cold. It's kind of hard to turn. But as soon as it warms up, it has absolutely no resistance whatsoever. And it should be the opposite of that. As it warms up, it should get more viscous. It should get, you know, it should start spinning faster. It should lock up more. And this was doing the opposite of that. So when it gets warm, it's not pulling any air across it. So I believe that they were having intermittent overheating issues with it due to the fan. So they went and grabbed a thermostat from local parts store, got the wrong thermostat, didn't take a minute and look at it to see if it was right or wrong, popped the thing in there and proceeded to overheat it. Maybe to the point that it slipped valve guides. At least that's what I'm thinking happened, because you know, those technically 4 valves weren't closing, and they weren't bent. I've got the valves here and they're straight as an arrow. I think the valve guides slipped and we're holding them open just from overheating. So that's my theory. Anyway, got a replacement fan clutch for it. I've got the correct thermostat for it. I've got a new temperature sending unit for it. So we're gonna stick those on there real quick and start this machine up and see if it runs and see if it overheats. And then the idea is gonna be to get it moved around enough to get it outside, because I wanna put it in the driveway and, you know, make sure it shifts and, you know, see what we got. So that's what we're going to start doing next. Let's get right to it. Oh, also, I've got a air conditioner belt that I'm going to slip on the AC just to see if that works. Because after all, at this stage of the game, we're just going to play the what works and what doesn't game. Keep a little list of what's broken and fix it. Yeah, that thermostat, that one fits exactly like I would expect it to. All right, let's see about putting a AC belt on it while we're here. Let's got the air conditioning belt on it. Next order of business is this. Not this. Let's use this instead. Well, how hard is that going to be to line up? I've only been lining up stuff since kindergarten. That's awesome. I can't get it lined up. I don't know how to do it. Wow, that is crazy how tough it is. There we go. Oh, the belt. The belt was hindering me. Alright, see, it wasn't me, it was the belt. Of course. You know what, before I even go that far, let's put the belt on here. At least. Alright, now let's redo all that. I believe it goes like this. Yeah, that's cool. There, that's at least half on there. Yep, I would say that one right there has lost its dampening fluid. Why, yes, it would be much easier to take it over to the bench, but, you know, I'm lazy. Okay. About as tight as I feel like making that. You know, these magnetic lights are super handy to have. Problem is, most every vehicle that you work on doesn't have any metal for it to stick on. Everything's plastic or cast aluminum. Sucks. I've been just using a pry bar here on the alternator to give it some tension. Seems to have worked pretty well. Right, there's that. So now I'll finish tightening these. We'll put some water in this thing, start it back up and see what happens. These things are pretty bad about getting air bubbles trapped in them. So in order to try to fight that just a little bit, I'm going to try and just fill up this upper hose to fill the engine up as much as I can. And hopefully that'll help, you know, at least get water throughout the engine and up against the back side of that thermostat. And this is just straight water. I'm not putting anything, any coolant in it yet, because let's face it, if I'd been using coolant every time, I would have probably had about $100 worth of coolant on the ground. So when you're doing something like this, just use straight water, and until you get everything where you know it's right, then drain it. Then you can fill it up with coolant and you won't waste your money. Plus, you know, every time I drop coolant, you know, every time I drop water on the ground and pitch it out, it's kind of like flushing the system. So call that a win. About a gallon in there. Coolant's back in it. Fan clutch is replaced. Correct thermostat's in it. I'm gonna leave the radiator cap off of it for a minute. Let's start it up, let it come up to operating temperature, cross our fingers and hope it doesn't try to overheat again. Contact. Taking a while to get fuel back up to it, I see. That fan's pulling strong. Even though it's cold, it's still pulling strong. Also, I've got the car sitting in here running, and I don't even smell any exhaust fumes, because check this out. That is a hose running out my door. That's a handy thing right there. The other day I was down here working, and you know, I was having to run my exhaust fans, and it still kind of smelled like exhaust in here with all the doors open, and it was rainy and gross. So I'm like, there's got to be a better solution for that. So I found that, and it's you know, about $100, but it's sure well worth it. I'll go ahead and drop a Amazon link down there for what I got. Also, if you guys want to do the same thing, sure help my circumstances. See what the temperature is doing here. Looks like we're starting to come up pretty much to the middle here. Question is, will it just run away with us or not? I'll come back as soon as I know. Well, I don't want to speak too soon, but it's been about, I don't know, 7 or 8 minutes now, and the temperature has came up about halfway and it's settled in. Right about there. That's the longest that it's ran without kind of going crazy. And also the idle has actually dropped on down now to where it's supposed to be. So that's the first time I've actually been able to run it long enough to get it to come down off high idle. So I think we're getting somewhere. I don't know if we have pressure or not, but it's looking pretty good so far. Wonder if the AC works. Let's see. Oh wait, that radio, you can't see that yet. So push that button, turn this on. I did hear the engine idle up. I wonder if the compressor's running or not. How about now? I bet the system's flat as a pancake. Be willing to bet. It's all right though. We can fix this stuff. We're about 15 minutes in now, and the temperature is still holding right on the center. So hopefully this is going to be fixed. I don't know. And we have a little bit of pressure in the system, but not a lot. I still don't think we're completely and totally up to operating temperature just yet. Thermostat's a 180, so I don't know we probably haven't ran quite long enough. It's kind of cool in this garage anyway, so may not have been here quite long enough just yet to get that done. But if we're fixed, we're getting it out of this garage. So I think I'm going to go ahead and just shut it down, and we're going to get these two cars off this lift and create a little bit of space. I got my four-wheeler and a couple of little dirt bikes here. I'm going to get that stuff out of here and create some room, and hopefully we can try to inch this thing out. Did you ever see that Austin Powers episode where he's trying to turn around in the hallway of the golf cart? It's going to be something like that. Here goes nothing. And yeah, the hood is still sitting up on top. So probably once I get it out, I'll put the hood back on it or move it somewhere else. Power going now. What that noise is? Look, it made it out. Can you believe it? It's outside. That bike right there, you don't see that either. We're not talking about that yet. We say we check the pressures on the air conditioning, see what that's like. If it's flat, we'll draw a vacuum, see how bad it leaks. And if it leaks, we might shoot some dye in it, and then at least we'll know if the AC works or not. We got the hood back on it and dragged out all my stuff for AC. Got my gauges out, got my refrigerant tank out, got my got my vacuum pump out, got everything all hooked up. Turned the gauges on. System's full. System's fully charged. Then I noticed that right there. That is the connector for the compressor. Yeah, it was unhooked. Let's start it back up and see if we have air conditioning this time. Check the simple stuff first, folks. Don't be like me. This thing's hard to start. I think we're losing fuel pressure. I'm going to verify that here in a little bit, but I think that's what's going on. Anyway, moment of truth. Well, it didn't explode. Hey, look, the compressor's running. Imagine that. So the AC has a chance of working. It's idling terrible. Oh yeah, heck yeah. We got good cold AC. Well, we have cold AC and our temperature seems to be behaving. I think the next thing to do is throw some air in these tires. Even though we don't have power steering, I think I want to put it out there in the driveway and see if it runs through the gears right, and just maybe just figure out a little more about the thing. I don't know. So let's go do that. Well, let's see how it drives. Got a good firm transmission feel there. I'm just gonna stay in the driveway because I haven't tagged and insured it yet. it shifted. Okay, that's a good sign. I still don't have power steering yet. I haven't hooked that up, but I will. There's the shift. Yeah, the transmission's shifting good. All right, so it does drive. Not too bad. Not too bad at all. Air conditioner feels good. Truck's running good. It's shifting good. You know, I think we may actually have a pretty good little vehicle here. I don't know. But there is one more thing. It's sluggish and it's hard to start. Let's see if we can fix that up. Well, the next thing we're going to have to be concerned with is the fact that it's kind of hard to start, and it seems to me like it lacks power a little bit. Now, I've never driven one of the 3.0s. They may just be slow as Christmas. I don't know. But I feel like we need to take care of that. Maybe what we need to do is see if we can pull some codes from it, but it's OBD1. How are we going to pull codes from OBD1, you ask? Well, I have just a solution for that. Let me show you. This is how we're going to do it. This is the Innova 5610 scan tool. Now, this is an OBD2 scanner, but it also supports OBD1 functionality. And there are the Toyota OBD1 cables. Now, like I said, this is an OBD2 scan tool, and it's a really full-featured OBD2 scan tool. It can do a lot of the things that my very, very expensive, like $1,500, $2,000 scan tools can do in a really small package. So it's really compact, really light, really easy to carry with you. In fact, I have another video on this. This has become my go-to scan tool. I want to put a link right up there for it, for a review video I did on it. This thing's cool. But back to the OBD1 and what we're working on. When you buy the tool, obviously you get the tool and the OBD2 thing, but there's a separate kit you can buy that includes all this. Basically, OBD1 adapters for, you know, GM and Dodge and Toyota, and I think maybe, I don't know what the other two are. You have to look and see on their site. But anyway, I have used the Dodge scanner, and that's the GM, and I will be using the Toyota scanner. And then you also get this extra length of cable, because most of the time in OBD1 days, the diagnostic port is somewhere under the hood, so it gives you a little bit easier access to it. So let me plug this thing up and let's see if we can read some codes out of it. On our Toyota, the diagnostic port is right here on the side of this this fuse block. Now, normally this thing is covered with a pretty little gray cover, but mine seems to be missing. But anyway, there are two different options for the Toyota style plugs, and this is the one we're going to be using on this one. So we pretty much just line it up and plug it in. Real straightforward stuff. Make sure it's plugged in good. Then we can take our included length of wire, plug it in here, and we'll plug it into the tool. We'll turn it upside down and we'll plug it into the tool. All right, so as soon as we turn this thing on, it should auto ID for us. Look, Toyota OBD1 system menu. Look at that. So it wants us to turn the ignition on and make sure all the accessories are off. So let's go do that. Actually, I have a door open. I don't think that matters, but anyway, we will turn the ignition on. Oh wait, the air conditioner's on because it's hot. So let's turn that off. There we go. All right, so that is done. So our check engine light is illuminated. Now we should be able to go back outside. All right, so now we'll hit read DTCs. And initially I was kind of concerned because it went as far as 40% and it stayed there for a long time. But if you look at the check engine light on the dash, the check engine light is actually flashing out the codes one by one. And I can only assume that as it's flashing out the codes, this tool is just basically interpreting those codes and going to display them for you. There we go. Okay, I have two codes. I have code 14, which is the ignition signal. That's a common thing for Toyotas. And we have knock sensor. LHFR, I assume that's left-hand front. Probably. But anyway, that's all the codes we have. So now we have a direction to go without just aiming the parts cannon at it. So see, the tool came in pretty handy. That knock sensor thing has me puzzled a little bit because we actually put a new knock sensor in it, and as far as I know, that knock sensor is plugged in well. So I'll have to go back and revisit that here in a second. But the code 14 for the igniter or for the ignition thing, it's usually a sign that the igniter is having an issue. The igniter is this little box right here that's hooked onto the side of the coil. Now, there's a ground here that's off, and I'm not really sure where that ground is supposed to go. But anyway, I'm gonna have to put it somewhere. The igniter should be grounded to the coil, which is grounded to the fender, so that should be getting a good ground. But here's the thing about that. I was getting in it the other day, and I opened my door, and as I started to get in, I'm like, whoa, what is that? That's an igniter module. Now, if you look at it, it's not the correct igniter module for this machine, but it does indicate that I'm not the first guy to chase code 14 on this. And the issue with code 14 is when when a vehicle runs good with the code 14 in it, it basically just means that it's probably going to leave you sitting at some point. Basically, in a nutshell, the ECU is listening for the igniter to report that it has successfully sent a spark command, and the ECU is not receiving the signal back saying, yes, I did it. So I think it has to miss 6 cycles or something like that. It has to miss 6 times before it finally says, you know, I'm going to set this code 14. So the truck is missing those events. So it's either going to be an igniter, or it's going to be the coil itself, or the ECU, or it could be wiring between the igniter and the ECU. But it's going to be one of those things. So we're going to have to dig in and see if we can figure that out too. But none of that's going to happen until the next episode, when we kind of dive into it and start fixing all the little things that are wrong. And in the next episode, we might even go so far as to start to clean it up. It needs it really bad, but this video is kind of getting long, and you know, kind of like to keep them somewhat concise to be able to watch and enjoy. So that takes care of it this time. We got it back up and running. We've solved the overheat problem. We've driven it. It shifts through the gears okay. So I think at this point I am happy to continue moving forward and putting a little more money into it and getting it back to the point of, you know, being a cool and interesting little vehicle to ride around in. So till the next time, guys, I really appreciate you watching. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, tell all your friends about us, and guys, I'll see you next time.